You are not as rational as you think. You are not as in control of yourself as you keep telling others, especially when everything around you is falling apart. Deep inside, you feel it. You know it, even if you're afraid to say it out loud. There's still a part of you, hidden but alive, that moves through old, automatic, impulsive patterns. It's the part you refuse to look at, because it's uncomfortable, because it stings, because it shakes your illusion of control. And yet, it controls you. Every time you explode for no reason. Every time you avoid the conversation that matters. Every time you promise not to repeat that emotional mistake, and still do. That part is there. Watching, acting, pulling strings. That's not just stress. That's your shadow. And no, this isn't poetry. This isn't metaphor. Carl Jung didn't write about the shadow to sound deep. He spoke of it because he understood a truth we still ignore. You are not only what you show, you are also what you hide. And what you hide governs you. It's like a whisper in the back of your mind. You may not hear it, but you feel it. It shapes how you speak, how you love, how you leave, how you sabotage. It hides behind your overthinking. It chooses your addictions, fuels your silence, and waits in your darkest corners. The shadow never sleeps. And the worst part? It doesn't need your permission. It just needs one thing, that you keep looking the other way. You know why you keep sabotaging yourself? Because you still believe that being positive is enough. You still think that mirror affirmations and recycled self-help quotes can fix years of emotional repression. You still believe that reading books written to make you feel better, not wake you up, is healing. But here's the brutal truth. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. And your shadow is right there, waiting. They've made you believe that to be free, you have to get rid of all your negativity. That to evolve, you must delete the darkness. That's a lie. The goal is not to destroy your shadow. The goal is to integrate it, because the more you run from it, the more it grows. The more you pretend it's not there, the more it controls your life from behind the scenes. Have you ever stopped and asked, why do I feel so much rage when someone questions me? Why does anxiety creep in the moment I'm alone? Why do I feel an inexplicable sadness exactly when life seems fine? It's not just you. It's the part of you you've hidden, silenced, buried, but never healed. Jung said it plainly. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let that sink in. Every time you feel like life is unfair, every time you think the world is against you, that you're cursed, ignored, forgotten, look deeper. It's your shadow disguised as coincidence. Here's the paradox. The more you try to look balanced, the more unstable you feel, because you're trying to show the light while denying the dark. But light without dark is flat, and a life without shadow has no depth. You become a cardboard version of yourself, a performer in your own life. And the tragedy? You believe that's maturity. You call it control. You wear it like a badge of strength. But the shadow sees you. It knows the truth behind your mask. And it's not here to ruin you. It's here to wake you up. It was born the moment you couldn't defend yourself. It grew when you got hurt and no one noticed. It matured when you learned that to survive, you had to hide. It is the wounded child, the angry teen, the tired adult saying, "This is just who I am. I can't change." But you can. The moment you decide to stop running. To integrate your shadow is not to destroy it. It's to finally see it. To stop pretending that your emotions are just reactions, or that your failures are just bad luck. The shadow hides inside your most unconscious responses. The need to control, the jealousy you won't admit, the bitterness you blame on others, the sadness you carry with no story. You don't need more light. You need more honesty. Because as long as you judge your darkness, you'll keep dividing yourself into fragments. One part that performs, and one part that pulls the strings behind the curtain. Real maturity isn't being calm when everything is fine. It's staying present when everything inside you wants to run. It's being able to sit down with yourself and not flinch, to look at your envy, your fear, your rage without turning away. That's courage. That's real work. And no, it doesn't happen through 5-minute meditations or morning mantras. This is not about self-help. It's about self-confrontation. And it's hard. Because the shadow doesn't appear as a monster. It appears as shame. It appears as that inner voice that tells you, you're broken, you're too much, you're not enough. And your instinct is to hide it, suppress it, or disguise it as discipline and strength. But strength isn't resistance. Strength is integration. To say, yes, this is also me, and I can still be whole. That's how you reclaim your power. The shadow formed as a defense. It protected you when you couldn't protect yourself. But now it's running your life without permission. And here's what no one tells you. If you don't listen to your shadow, it will speak in other ways. In anxiety, in burnout, in the silence that kills your relationships, in the decisions that sabotage your future. Every part of yourself that you don't own will own you. Every truth you don't speak will become a wound that bleeds sideways. Every feeling you bury becomes a force you can't control. And yet, you still smile. You still say, I'm fine. You still hold it together, hoping no one notices that you're falling apart inside. But Jung was right. The shadow is not always evil. It is simply neglected. And what you neglect, you fear. What you fear, you resist. And what you resist, persists. Have you ever noticed how your shadow doesn't scream? It whispers. It shows up in that sick feeling before a conversation you avoid, in the anger you direct at someone else, even though it's really meant for yourself, in the way you disappear when it's time to be seen, in the way you chase love that feels familiar, not because it's good, but because it matches your wound. That's not random. That's patterned pain. Your shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants you to come home, to understand what it's been trying to say all along. But that requires stillness, to stop running, to stop numbing, to stop performing for a world that doesn't even see you, and to start listening, deeply, to the part of you that was never welcomed, the part that was too intense, too sad, too wild, too afraid, the part of you that was told to get over it before it ever had the chance to speak. When you listen to that voice, everything changes. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop abandoning yourself. And when you stop abandoning yourself, you no longer beg for approval. You stop explaining who you are to those who don't get it. You stop molding yourself into who you think the world wants you to be. You move from authenticity, not from fear. You speak because it's your truth, not because you want to be liked. And that is unshakable. Because a person who is real no longer needs to be perfect. And in a world addicted to masks, being real is a revolution. So stop trying to eliminate your darkness. Stop trying to be endlessly positive. Stop chasing healing, as if it's something that looks clean and quiet. Healing is bloody, raw, uncomfortable. It's tears at 3 a.m. It's shaking alone in your car. It's being honest for the first time in years and not knowing if you'll survive it. But you will. Because when you stop resisting your shadow, it stops being your enemy. It becomes your compass. And for the first time, you are not a puppet of your pain. You are the one choosing your next step. Awake, aware, and whole. The biggest illusion we carry is that we are logical beings, that we make decisions based on facts, that our opinions are our own, that when we get triggered, it's about the present moment, and not the echoes of something older, deeper, unhealed. But let me ask you this. Have you ever said yes when every fiber of you wanted to say no? Have you ever walked into a relationship knowing it would end in pain and stayed anyway? Have you ever ruined something good? Not because you wanted to, but because it felt unfamiliar? That isn't logic. That's shadow behavior. We don't act from reason. We act from repetition. Your nervous system isn't loyal to your happiness. It's loyal to what's familiar. And if pain is what you know, pain is what you'll return to, again and again, until you make the unconscious conscious. That's what Jung meant. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You think you're in charge? Watch yourself during a moment of stress. Do you pause, or do you react? Do you speak from clarity? Or does the 7-year-old version of you hijack the moment and lash out, shut down, or run? That's the shadow in real time. And it doesn't ask for permission. It acts. It steers. It chooses who you trust, who you love, who you chase, and more tragically, what you avoid. The conversations you dodge? That's your fear of rejection, not your wisdom. The calm you wear like armor? That's your disconnection, not your peace. The success you flaunt, even when you're miserable inside? That's your wounded self begging to be enough. We are not rational. We are reflexive. And here's the dangerous part. The more you pride yourself on being in control, the more likely it is that your shadow is running the show. Because true control isn't rigidity. It's awareness. True stability isn't about avoiding chaos. It's about being able to stay present in the chaos without losing yourself. You might say, but I meditate. But I journal. But I know what my trauma is. Yes. But do you feel it? Have you allowed it to move through your body? Or are you just explaining it away with words that sound smart but change nothing? The shadow doesn't care what you know. It responds to what you feel but refuse to face. And it shows up in the smallest ways. When you scroll endlessly instead of resting. When you ghost someone instead of being honest. When you laugh too loud at things that aren't funny, just to fit in. When you stay in the room long after your soul has left. Every act of self-betrayal adds weight, until your life becomes heavy. And you don't even know why. You think it's the job, the partner, the weather. But it's not. It's you. Ignoring you. And what happens when you ignore yourself long enough? The shadow takes the wheel. But it doesn't scream. It whispers. It tells you to be proud when you suppress your needs. To smile when your heart is breaking. To stay quiet because no one will understand. That's how we end up exhausted. Not because life is hard, but because we're wearing a mask all day long. A mask that hides our real voice, our real needs, our real selves. And here's the irony. You think you're strong for enduring. But the strongest thing you could do is to remove the mask. To say, I don't know. I'm not okay. This isn't working. I want something else. That takes guts. That takes soul. That's what it means to be awake. Because when you stop reacting and start responding, you stop bleeding your past into your present. You stop confusing fear for intuition. You stop mistaking survival for success. And something shifts. You're no longer a prisoner of the story you didn't choose. You become the author, page by page, choice by choice. But be warned, the shadow won't vanish just because you've read this far. It's patient. It waits for your weak moments. It reappears in success, in failure, in intimacy. It's in how you speak to yourself at night. It's in the silence you keep around people who've hurt you. It's in the way you downplay your joy so others feel comfortable. That's not humility. That's fear. And you've carried enough of that. It's time to put it down. Not by becoming fearless, but by becoming honest. Say what you mean. Feel what you feel. Let the parts of you that you've silenced for years finally breathe. Because the most dangerous thing isn't the darkness. It's pretending it isn't there. So here you are. You've made it through the discomfort, the resistance, the truths you weren't ready to hear but stayed for anyway. And that matters. Because anyone can wear a mask, but not everyone dares to take it off. And those who do, they start a different kind of life. Not the kind where things are always easy, but the kind where everything makes sense. When you start walking with your shadow instead of fleeing from it, your entire internal landscape shifts. You begin to realize you weren't broken. You were fragmented. You weren't weak. You were unintegrated. You weren't self-destructive. You were unheard. The parts of you that sabotaged love, ruined good days, avoided silence, they weren't your enemies. They were the abandoned parts, screaming for your return. And now you know where they live. You know how they sound. You know their names. You can finally sit at the table with all yourselves, the angry one, the ashamed one, the jealous one, the deeply wounded one, and not push them away. You say, I see you. You say, you don't need to protect me like that anymore. And little by little, they soften. This is not spiritual fantasy. This is real psychological work. This is what actual healing feels like. It doesn't feel like bliss. It feels like chaos, then clarity, collapse, then calm. It's the messy middle that nobody posts about. But it's also where freedom begins. Because when you no longer need to perform, to please, to be liked, to be perfect, you finally make room to be. And being is the most revolutionary thing in a world of doing. What changes when you integrate your shadow? Everything. You no longer chase, you attract, you no longer react, you respond. You no longer justify your truth, you embody it. You no longer repeat the trauma, you rewrite the script. And the people around you? They feel the shift, too. You stop participating in toxic dynamics. You stop repeating your childhood pain in adult relationships. You stop begging for what you've learned to give yourself. People will say you've changed. They might not all like it. That's okay. Because your goal is not to be liked. Your goal is to be whole. And whole people are intimidating to those who are still hiding. You will find new mirrors, new connections, new intimacy. The kind that starts with authenticity. You no longer show up to be loved. You show up as love. That's integration. That's transformation. That's the path of the awakened soul. But let me be clear. It doesn't end here. There's no finish line. Shadow work is a lifelong practice, a daily remembering. Some days you'll fall back into patterns. That's okay. Catch yourself with compassion. Say, ah, there you are, old fear. I see you, but I choose differently now. That is power. Not dominance. Not denial. But awareness. The kind that changes lives. So if today, after everything you've heard, something inside you has shifted, if there's a fire, a question, a trembling truth you can no longer avoid, then this video has done its job. But more importantly, you've done yours. You stayed. You listened. You looked. Now it's time to live from what you've seen. Write it down. Say it out loud. Tell your shadow, "You're not my shame, you're my signal." And walk forward, not perfectly, not cleanly, but consciously. Because that's what real freedom is. Not escaping yourself, but embracing all of it. And finally, coming home.